All right, welcome. And I'm so excited to share today in the podcast. And we are live. We are live in the flesh here for episode 186. The title, I named it, is called Signs You Need a Pause, my current version, my 2025 version of letting go. Welcome. So excited to share today. Yeah. And so we're also live on YouTube at this time. So if you want to go to my YouTube channel, you can go to Rachel O'Mara 1 and find it under the podcast channel for the Pausecast. So what are we talking about today? I'm excited to share this because this is breaking news for me and now for you. But I recently left a job that I'm in. In fact, last Friday was my last day at Sick Venture Studio. The venture studio that I co-founded with my partner. We were in it for 2.5 years, and I just had been thinking for a while, a couple months, around how and what was I doing this for, and was it really, uh, in a way, working for me? And what I realized was it wasn't. And I had talked to coaches about it. I had journaled on it. I had all kinds of tools, which I know really work and learned from my own previous pause. Remember the book, which is the pause, harnessing the life-changing power of of giving yourself a break. I wrote that when I left Google and I took a break and I didn't quit. I went back in 3 months and stayed another 10 years. And that book is full of a lot of different inspiring stories of people who've taken a pause in different ways. But remember, I call a pause any intentional shift in behavior. And so today I want to go through what is going on with me and relate why this work is so important. And a good reminder for all of us is it's never too late, it's never too soon to pause. And you need to trust what comes through when you decide to go through that. And it is different for all of us. So what I need is different than what you need. And that's why only you know the answer, which I think is so cool, right? It's just what is going on and how we do it. And so I want to share a couple things. So today I'm here live. It's Tuesday. We have a podcast. I resigned from Sick Venture Studio, which is a biotech startup, which was around for now 2.5 years and is still going strong, where we're working with early stage biotech companies and spinning them out from universities like Stanford and raising a fund to help them and become actual companies, as well as work with other clients who we worked with to help them through marketing, through sales, and strategy. And I really enjoyed the work. The vision always was for us to provide emotional intelligence and leadership towards these companies and the founders who were at the helm so that they could blow the doors off of what they were doing and do really, really well. And that was going on, but I would say it just wasn't where I wanted it to be in terms of the work I was doing, dedicating it towards coaching and leadership. So I decided that my best move would be to pause and then depart. And so that's what I've done. And then we set everything up and I left on Friday. And so today I'm just here to reflect a couple insights and nuggets around signs you know you need a pause. And this is part of the book, but I also I want to go over those again because I feel like they're timeless and really important. If you are right now thinking about what to do next, maybe you're in a career transition, maybe you're feeling a little stuck, or maybe you're just in a path, but you're like, what could I do differently that can really help me thrive? Because if you're feeling less than stellar, meaning maybe you're in a rut, or maybe you're just working a lot and you're feeling overwhelmed or stressed, or you're just not feeling aligned. I mean, that's really the key to me is if you don't feel aligned, you kind of know it. So it's about whether you listen to that insight or you go and just keep on pressing until eventually something breaks, meaning maybe you, or maybe the system, or maybe, there's just a pathway but you could save yourself a lot of time. You could save yourself a lot of effort if that's the path and the choice that you want to make. All right. So how do you know when it's time to step back and reassess and take that pause? And that's what I'm going to be talking about in this conversation through my own experience with the venture studio. So I'm just going to back up and give you a little narrative here, what was going on. So I mentioned I started this 2.5 years ago. It's kind of been my job. I've put the power of pause, this business, on the back burner. And really the only thing I was actively doing was the podcast, like literally, and coaching clients. So I had a handful of clients that are amazing and wonderful. You know who you are. And I also love the podcast. I love sharing through this medium where it's just dictated and I can put it out there. I do all my own production and I just love it. Like it's a blast for me. I really, really like it. And so that was it. Like I wasn't doing any new marketing, I wasn't doing any new courses, I wasn't launching anything, but it was just kind of like keeping the burners on and going forward, which was fine. And therefore that allowed me a lot more energy and resources to focus on the studio. However, I kind of had this itch, and last couple months of 2024, I was thinking about maybe moving on. I had pondered that. And I was just in the inquiry of it. I didn't know if I would. And often before we know we want to pause, we're in that inquiry. Like, what am I doing? Do I want to stay here? Do I want to leave? What would make sense? And we don't know. We're in the thick of it because we have feelings to stay and it's exciting, or there's incentives like salaries and getting insurance and like all those awesome things that jobs typically provide. And then there's also the other side of that, which is you get to free up resources and time if you move on and do something else. So my world, the first sign, so the first sign I had was, you used to love your job. This is in the book, by the way, pause. You used to love your job and now you loathe it. It's kind of how I say it. But in my case, I wasn't loathing it, but I wasn't liking it. I was feeling like I was getting pulled in 100 directions that weren't really what I wanted to do. And being in biotech, that's not my background. My background's more on the tech side, but I was learning it. And 2.5 years in, I felt like I had a pretty good grasp of things. However, we were doing all kinds of things that were more on the operational side and things that you have to do when you run your own business, like admin and emails and like renewals of contracts and things like that. And so to me, it was not necessarily serving and I wasn't loving it again. Like I loved the venture studio and I still do, don't get me wrong, but it just wasn't impacting me in the way that I really wanted it to as a founder. And therefore, that was a sign that I started to be in the inquiry of it. So it comes January, we have our big event in JP Morgan Healthcare in San Francisco. And then pretty much after that, I realized, yeah, this isn't what this, I got clearer and I knew I wouldn't be there much longer and I knew I had to move on. And so that's what I did. But I also set myself and my crew up for success where I made sure I stuck around and transitioned anything I needed to and supported people that I know needed support or whatever it was. So that's kind of how my journey has unfolded. And just to go, what is next for me? I'm in that inquiry. So this is the pause. And so today is really the first work day on figuring that out. And I've been reminded by a few great colleagues that you don't have to have all the answers. And that's what I always remember about pause is you don't have to know the answers. It's the unknown. You're in the white space. You're in between the spaces. Between the white page is literally between a book almost. That's your life. So that's what's exciting for me. And I just want to relate this back to all of us as leaders, as founders, as executives, that you too can take a step back. And it doesn't mean you derail yourself. It doesn't mean you quit either. In my case, it did, but the last time it didn't. Like I went back and worked another 10 years at the job that I had. So I think the subtle or not so subtle signs that you might need a pause are really, really key. And also how to navigate these transitions. So making sure that there's clarity and self-trust. We'll talk about that. And then also tools like breathwork or shifts to help you release what no longer serves you. I've been working a lot with a coach on my own energetic shifts, which is actually, I think, a real part of how this all came about because I realized the energy I had wasn't necessarily aligned, meaning I didn't feel like this was resonating with me in the way that I think it once had. But that's a good thing because then I can create work and then I can create new spaces for what does resonate. Okay, so let's just keep going through the signs. We'll cover that first. So I mentioned the first one. You used to love your job and now you don't. And these can all serve as wake-up calls. And what I love to say and think about is even if you have one of these signs, then guess what? You win the prize for knowing that you might need a pause. And remember, a pause is any intentional shift in behavior. It might mean you start to journal about stuff. It might mean you'd have a conversation with someone about what's happening. It doesn't mean a big, crazy shift, a seismic shift. And I really want to make sure that that's clear. So, okay, now let's move on to the second sign, which is your boss tells you it's not working out. And in my case, I was my own boss. Okay, we were co-founders, my co-founder Paul and I was reporting to me and to him a little bit. And so I was telling myself, and I was getting kind of an internal gut instinct that things aren't where I wanted to be right for me right now. And so then and I listened a lot because and it kept getting louder, which is kind of how it works, right? If we have something and this is the same with emotional work too. So if you have a feeling and you stuff it down or avoid it, what happens? Unfortunately, it doesn't just magically disappear, although that would be great. No, it sticks around. In fact, it might get louder or stronger. It's kind of like physical pain. Like when we have a backache or a shoulder ache or a neck ache. Okay, this is mine. This is a true story. I had on my right side of my neck, I had like this crazy pain on it over the holidays. And I wasn't working. I took 2 weeks off and I was watching TV and all of a sudden it would start to hurt. I would be walking or, going to Starbucks and I would start to feel this back pain. And it was like this one simple stretch of my neck, which I never ever have had. And I didn't do anything wonky. Like I was just doing stuff. Yet it showed up and I literally had a pain in my neck. And I had some energetic work on it from my coach. I had some stretches that I did, and I really thought differently. And all of a sudden, it went away when I made this decision. I am not kidding. And I'm not saying that happens to you, but I cannot deny that that was something that manifested in my body that was physical pain because I wasn't taking any action at the time. I was in the inquiry and then, did decide to do something else. So what are you telling yourself if you're your own boss or if you are working with other folks who are in that position? Is there feedback for you? Is there things? And remember, it's about being in alignment. And that's really important. So know that that's the second sign. The third sign is a technology intervention. So this one, I would say I didn't really have, I'm trying to think if I did have this. I don't think so. I wasn't over indexing on a lot of things. Like I wasn't working on the weekends. I feel like I learned that, but it's a huge sign. And I decided that I was choosing to not do that because I wanted to just be very different in my boundaries with work this time around and for the rest of my life, which is what I support. And all of us can do that. So that's the third sign. And so think about it for you. Do you have an intervention? In the book, I talk about my dear friend, Kathleen, and she literally tells me as we're driving over the Golden Gate Bridge for a little weekend getaway in Sonoma, Rachel, you need to stop using your laptop so much. Or it was something to that effect. It's in the book. You guys can read it in chapter 1. And I looked at her and I said, "You're right. Oh my God, you're right." And so just think about how are you using technology now? Are you using it as a device to escape potentially, just to scroll stuff? Maybe you're attached to email. Maybe you want to stay ahead, quote unquote, air quotes, like stay ahead of the game and keep on your digital devices. I think the big telltale sign is, do they get in the way of relationships? Are they disruptive in that way where potentially you're on your phone or watching TV when you would be at the dinner table being with your loved ones or your pets, whomever, whatever that is. And I don't know, but only you know that. So that's the third sign. And then the fourth sign is an opportunity a challenge comes up for you. And that might be anything from a healthcare issue to caring for a loved one. Maybe you are laid off. That's a big challenge. Like there's all kinds of stuff that can qualify for that. And maybe that's in your realm. For me, the challenge I did have was I don't feel like this is my best work. To be completely brutally honest with myself, this venture studio is not in my best interest for right now. And I think this is the first time I'm saying that out loud. And I feel really good saying it because it is the truth. I felt like I was putting things on the back burner, like pause and not getting new clients or not like really doing this work that I feel very called to do. And I was paying the price for it in ways that I felt like weren't really working for me. So that's the challenge. That's what I also had that. And then the fifth sign is kind of the opposite of that one, which is there's an opportunity that presents itself, which might be really like what maybe the opportunity cost might be, right? So what would you do if you weren't in this role? Or potentially there's a passion project that you want to continue or start to do. I don't know. What would that be for you? For me, this one wasn't very strong. I didn't have anything other than, well, I guess you could look at it both ways. It wasn't anything new. However, what was the opportunity was what I was missing, which was the time and the space to work on helping clients transform in ways that I could use more of that time to do that. And I was doing that a little bit in Sick Venture. I had some clients. It was wonderful and I love them dearly. I was also, working with a team, but the company was shifting and moving and shaking, doing all these things. And I also was wondering, is this really what I need to be doing right now? And the answer I kept getting was no from myself. And it just became clearer and clearer as the time went on. And so early Feb or end of January, I guess it was. So the JP Morgan event happened, and then I gave my notice and worked out the transition plan. And I have to tell you, when I did that, I felt really, really good and just so clear that that was aligned. So think about your journey, signs that you need a pause, and what does that look like for you? Are you in that inquiry right now? Or have you had that? Or maybe you know someone who's going through it. Those signs can be subtle or not so subtle, but give yourself a little inventory on those five. Because if you have one sign, right, one out of those five, maybe it's not loving what you used to do. There's something off. And it doesn't mean you leave, by the way, but you can look at what's going on, making things a little more conscious because chances are it's about you, right? You're the common denominator. We're all the common denominator. So we can shift things. We love to project out and think it's others and the environment, but the reality is it's really about you. And so that's so important. And I think a lot of us as leaders, high achievers, type A's like me and you, like we are go-getters. And so it's really, really hard to take that moment to reflect and have that honest conversation with ourselves to say, hey, you know what? Like, yeah, like I'm not in love with this anymore. And maybe you don't have to be in love with it, but you have to be excited and you have to be feeling like everything's working for you. All right. So those are the signs that I would remind you to check out. And if you need a little help, you can check out, this is the podcast to do it, and then also pause the book, or you can talk to me. I'm happy to help you with a more customized approach because that's the thing. It's not like each of us has this script. In fact, it's a blank script until we create it or we even decide to take it in that way. Whew, let's take a deep breath. And just notice how you're feeling right now. I'm feeling in my own world, I'm feeling joy. I'm in the flow here, just chatting and thinking about things. Because if we don't know how we feel, it's really hard to know how others feel. And it's hard to know what we need and what we can do differently anyway. And so that's the first step. I always teach my clients to know how you're feeling first, because without that, you're kind of lost. And a lot of times when we are burned out or feeling like we're spinning, it's because we're not aware of what's going on in our own bodies. And we might have a sense like, oh my God, I hate this place or I'm mad. Okay, well, that's helpful, but like, so how are you feeling? Like I'm feeling angry. I am feeling mad. And just allowing yourself to be in that space, because that means you're no longer pushing it away or denying it. It doesn't mean you react adversely. It just means you acknowledge it. And that's very, very validating for yourself and for any emotion. So just, hot tip there from me. Now that we've talked about the signs, the second thing I wanted to cover is to how to navigate big shifts. So if this is a big shift, like I left a big role as a founder, it's important to know there's clarity there for yourself and self-trust. I want to say that again. And that is the tough part, is trusting yourself. This is the best move right now. And remember, nothing's set in stone. Maybe you go back. Maybe you have a conversation and say, I actually decided it's not there. But when you listen to yourself, usually that alignment and clarity comes up in a way where you know where you're going and you feel clear. You may not know how, you may not know what it looks like. That doesn't matter. Don't worry about it. It's about the clarity to know what you need. In my reference here, I felt like 1,000,000% clear this was the path for me. And I trusted myself, meaning I wasn't second guessing, like, oh, am I really that? And trust me, like I had my back and forth. I did question that a few times. And that's when I journaled. That's when I had coaching on it. That's when I learned about, what's happening. And every time I did that, I got clearer on the result. And I went back to the answer that I actually had already had. And I only got more detailed. I got better at the clarity part. And that's the invitation for you, is to understand with clarity what is working for you, what isn't. And you can even make a list, like what's working for me, like the pros, and what's not working for me, the cons. And that's a really helpful tool just to know. So you visualize it, it gets outside your head. You see it on a piece of paper or a document that you type up. I recommend writing it out physically with your hand. It actually changes how your brain is thinking about things, because now it's a tangible item that isn't necessarily just your thoughts or your words. It's actually a physical piece of paper, or that's why it's better, I think, on paper versus the laptop. But it can really serve you to make things more objective. So you get out of the subjective mind and the judgy zone that we can fall into so easily, and understand what can be different. And then that's validating too, right? And how do you feel when you look at that list? Oh, my list, man, I feel joy because I have all these things out in front of me now. That's cool. But I also feel hurt because I can't believe all these cons are still here and they haven't changed. And that feels sad and hurt. And I feel hurt a little bit. How cool is that? So remember, you are the CEO of your to-do list. I love to say that. You are the CEO of your career and your life transitions. You get to call the shots. That in itself builds self-trust, but you have to believe it, right? And I work a lot with my clients on this too, because this is huge. I'm working on this myself because we're taught a lifetime of ways to potentially self-sabotage the beliefs that we have, the stories we tell ourselves. They don't necessarily serve us. The critic mind loves to chime in and be like, hey, what? Like, are you sure? Yeah, right. You're never going to pull that off, Rachel. You know what I mean? Picking up what I'm laying down. Is this resonating at all? So, how do we do this? We have to step into the next version of ourselves, the next person we might act as if, and fake it till we make it a little bit, and make the choice point. I'm in this. I'm ready to move forward. But if we are kind of waffling, one foot in, one foot out, it's just never going to be as effective. You're going to be slower. You're going to not go in the ways that you need to move into the new realms that are waiting for you. Well, just think about that. What is waiting for you? I love thinking about that. And I'm working with a client right now who started a job about a month ago, and man, he hates it. Let's just say it's just not aligned. It's not what he thought he'd be doing. He took too much on and he wants to do something else. I love that he knows that. And I know that he doesn't know how, because he hasn't figured that out. No one does, right? How do you know? But he's clear that it's not the right fit for him. And so he's trusting, and we're working on this all the time, is he's trusting his instincts and his gut brain that there's something better for him that will be more aligned. And he's even verbalized it a few times to me. And so we're going to make that happen. I can't wait. It's a different field, it's a different set of skills, but he knows that's where he's going. And that's the clarity and self-trust that we can all build. And he's done his work. He's done personal work before. He's had coaches, and now it's a time to step into that. And that's the hard part. right? So I'm here to hold your hand to take you through it because no one can get there alone because we're all captive in our own minds, right? And that's why the pause is so key. It's the gateway to what else is out and waiting for you. All right, let's take a deep breath into that. Whew. Yay. All right. Yes, navigating big transitions. It's so, so important. And pausing is part of that journey. The third thing to think about is mindset tools and somatic tools so that you can step back and release what no longer serves you. Because it's not just like, okay, I'm moving on, moving and shaking. I'm going to change it up and then next week go to something else. And I'm going to share a quick little story here because I have a group of advisors, mentors. We meet monthly, a mastermind group, which I love. And I had the suggestion in my particular challenge that I raised that I was going to take off the month of March to figure out what to do next and then jump right back in April. And I'm laughing because basically the entire folks, all my friends and masterminders in my group told me one, hey, you might want to check out this book, Pause, and read it, which I love. And then maybe take a little more time because that's not a lot. A month is not a lot of time. And why don't you work on these other things that you can do to have income and figure things out while you come up with your incredible next adventure plan that will be where you want to go. And by that, I mean, all these cool things I'm thinking about right now are a little jumbled. Group coaching, venture capital, one-on-one coaching, executive coaching, writing, speaking, right? There's all these things that are a little jumbled for me right now because I haven't aligned enough to know the how, which is fine. Like I know this now as part of the drill. It's part of the process. You don't know how because you've never been there before. But what I can do is keep showing up for myself, keep getting coaching, keep asking questions, and use my tools, my emotional intelligence tools that I work with and eat my own dog food, so to speak, as we would say at Google. So breath work is an incredible practice. And as you might know, every second Tuesday of the month is a breath work exercise or a somatic exercise, whether it's mindfulness or meditation, but usually it's breath work 4 out of 5 times, like 80%. And I do that as often as I can. And it breath work, if in case you haven't tried it or know it, this is conscious breath. And even in less than 8 minutes, you can reset your nervous system. Even like 3 minutes, I think, in my sense, if you just take one breath, if you want to try this right now with me, putting both feet on the floor, you can close your eyes if it's helpful, sitting straight up or standing straight up, inhaling through your nose. Exhale through your mouth. Nice. Sigh. You can even let out any sounds. Woo. Okay, that was one breath. What was that? 10 seconds? And I even feel different after that. So breath work can help you release what no longer serves you and partner that with a mantra. I release anything that does not serve me, any limits I place on myself. That was our breath work for last week in February. Check it out, episode 185. I release all limits I place on myself with a pattern. I guarantee, one, you will feel different. And two, you might have some new insights or ahas that will really serve you in navigating that transition. I'm a huge believer in the body. The body tells a story and the breath can guide that story. And using the breath in ways that can really be intentional serves a pause in the way that that happens. There's all kinds of mindset tools out there as well. And I would say the best one I love to employ and practice and teach is the first thing I teach anyone who's ever worked with me is to name a feeling. When I burned out in 2011, I didn't know how to name a feeling. I didn't know what I was feeling. I just knew I didn't feel good. I felt angry, but it wasn't okay to feel angry in my family history and my family system. So I avoided it. I kind of stuffed it down. And then when I would feel it, it was like this volcano that was erupting and I felt rage, but I didn't really even know how to do that. So I would just cry. Like it was wild. And that was because I didn't have any tools. And then I went and studied and learned them all. And years later, got the coaching certification and got my master's in transformational leadership and coaching. And voila, it's part of my bread and butter every day, how I work and start my day and journal and all of that. So for you, I would ask, what are you feeling what emotion is coming up. And I work with 5 primary feelings. These are from the Right Foundation: fear, hurt, joy, anger, sadness. Don't go into the 3,000 sub feelings of those or millions of those. Literally sticking to those 5, it eliminates the mind game of going back up in my head and your head and figuring out what to do. And it also makes it really simple to not overthink it. So those are 2 tools that I would say are imperative during any pause. And breath work can just be literally breathing in and out. It doesn't need to be some crazy thing, or you don't even need a mantra, but the more you add to it, the more intention you bring, the more you feel into it, the more benefits you will have. And so there's so much in this steps of knowing, letting go of whatever isn't serving you to make room for what is. And that's where I'll end today, because when we let go of what isn't serving us, it leaves us so much space and so much more capacity to take on what works for us. And that is the power of the pause, because we get clear on what we don't know doesn't serve us, and it leaves room. So that's like, it's like cleaning out a drawer. Okay. That's like the super simple version of this. If you had a dresser and you want to clean out the clothes, kind of Mary Kondo style or something, life-changing power of tidying up. I love her. Uh, and she was a big part of my title, by the way, the life-changing power of giving yourself a break. Then you can eliminate the things that aren't serving you, the clothes that don't bring you a spark of joy, and then you make room for what does, which might be potentially something new in that drawer. It might be a partner sharing that drawer if you were single, which actually was pretty cool. That worked in my department before I met my husband, and can help you get decluttered, which can free up your mind and your mental space, which everything else will follow from there. All right. So thank you for listening to this today. And I just feel so much joy that you're on this journey with me, because no one can do it alone. And this was a big thing for me to leave, something I started. And sometimes you just know it's time to go and to move on, because there is something different and better waiting for you. And that's my words for you today. I'm so grateful that you came by. Thank you for being here. And listen, if you've got questions, you need help, you're feeling stuck, you want to know what the next move is, you don't have to know the move. You just have to know you want to do something. I can help you. And that's what I do with my clients, is we help you up level to the next level of your leadership, whatever that looks like. And trust me, it's awesome. With that, I hope you have a great rest of your day. And thank you, thank you, thank you. Sending you much love. Take care.